Welcome to Decoding Cultural Layers, where stories turn into insights and everyday life unfolds in unexpected ways. I'm Gafdilius. Let's peel back the layers together. Leonardo da Vinci is seen not only as one of the greatest figures of the Renaissance, but as one of the most extraordinary minds in human history. Painter, inventor, engineer, anatomist, philosopher, stage designer, even designer of war machines. It's almost impossible to fit him into a single profession. When some thinkers say, while everyone slept in darkness, the first to wake up was Leonardo, they're not exaggerating. The beginning of an illegitimate child. Leonardo was born in 1452 in the small town of Vinci, near Florence. His father held one of the most respected professions of the era. He was a notary and a lawyer, serving the nobility and enjoying a strong economic position. His mother, on the other hand, is described in sources as a poor peasant girl, possibly a slave brought from North Africa, a Circassian migrant, or more generally, the farmer's daughter. After she becomes pregnant, she is quickly married off to another farmer and disappears from the historical record. Because Leonardo is an illegitimate child, he starts life with a serious disadvantage in 15th century Italy. It is nearly impossible for him to receive a proper education or attend university. As a child, he is sent to live with his grandfather and grandmother. With an especially curious uncle, he explores nature, shells, stones, rock formations. This curiosity later becomes the foundation of his interest in tectonic movements, geology, and fossils. After his grandparents die, his father takes him to Florence. Leonardo is now around 14 to 17 years old, but because he is illegitimate, he cannot enter formal schools. Using his social connections, his father places him first as a general helper in the workshop of Verrocchio, one of the leading masters of the time. A boy who sweeps the floor, prepares paint, stands in the background and watches. Verrocchio's workshop, a parade of stars. Verrocchio's workshop is a true parade of future stars. In the same space you find Botticelli, Ghirlandaio and the young Leonardo, all of whom will eventually leave a deep mark on art history. Leonardo first learns by watching from a distance how canvases are stretched, how paints are mixed, how lines are drawn. Nobody gives him a classical formal training, but he masters the craft through observation. After a while, Verrocchio promotes him from shop boy to true student. In the famous painting, Tobias and the Angel, the small curly-haired dog and the fish Tobias carries are widely accepted as Leonardo's work. This is one of his first appearances as an active painter. Later, in the Baptism of Christ, the angel at the edge of the painting is thought to have been painted by Leonardo. The soft transitions and slightly powdered look in that angel's face are an early announcement of the Sfumato technique that Leonardo will later perfect. But Leonardo does not start out flawless. In the Annunciation, the perspective of the small lectern is off. Mary's dress and the armrest create the illusion that she has 3 legs, and the fabric looks harsh and stiff instead of like fine silk. In other words, even a young genius who thinks he has arrived can make serious pictorial mistakes. The Renaissance, homosexuality, and the first escape. In Renaissance Italy, male-male relationships are punishable by death under the law. Despite this, romantic and sexual relationships between masters and apprentices are quite common in artistic circles. Under the protection of the Medici family, some people are effectively above the law. Everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. In his youth, Leonardo's name appears in a sodomy case involving the assault of a male model. Because the powerful Medici are implicated, witnesses do not come forward, and the case is dropped. But street-level moral enforcers who hunt homosexuals continue to threaten Leonardo. This atmosphere is one of the reasons why he flees Florence and goes to the Sforza court in Milan. He accomplishes this escape with a letter that is often described as one of the first CVs in history. In this letter to Ludovico Sforza, he introduces himself by listing what he can do: war machines, multi-barrel cannons, armoured vehicles, flying machines, tunnelling devices, buildings, statues, stage designs for spectacles. At the very end, almost as an afterthought, he says, "By the way, I can also paint." The Sforzas hire him, but initially as a designer of festivals and stage sets, not as a war engineer. This, however, gives him a great luxury, time to experiment, draw, and research. Notebooks, drawings, and a Hezaphen. Mind, during his years in Milan, Leonardo produces thousands of pages of drawings and notes. The roughly 6,000 pages that have reached us are thought to be only about 1/3 of the original total. The rest are lost. These notebooks include not just art, but hydrology, mechanics, flying machines, weapons, human anatomy, geology, and cosmology. He writes that the reason birds stay in the air is the difference in air pressure above and below their wings. This is an intuitive aerodynamic insight made roughly 200 years before Newton formulates related principles. He designs primitive versions of machines that resemble airplanes, helicopters, parachutes, and even a bicycle, inventions that will only become reality centuries later. Finding marine fossils on mountaintops, he asks, could this place once have been the sea? He writes that perhaps what is sea now was once land, and what is land now was once sea. He is one of the first minds to seriously wrestle with tectonic movement and geological time. Some Eastern sources are said to refer to him with an honorific similar to Hezaphen, a person of 1,000 sciences, emphasizing his multidisciplinary nature. Centuries later, one of his notebooks, the Codex Leicester, is bought from a museum by Bill Gates for about $30 million, digitized and made accessible to researchers. But this codex is only a tiny fragment. Most of Leonardo's written legacy remains scattered across museums and archives. The unfinished giant horse and perfectionism. One of Leonardo's most famous unfinished works is the giant horse he designs for Ludovico Sforza. He plans a 75-ton bronze horse, even casts the massive clay or plaster model for it. The form is ready, but as the French invasion approaches, Sforza decides the bronze must be used for cannons rather than art. The horse is never cast. The project remains unfinished. In 1550, Giorgio Vasari writes, Leonardo's genius was so great that he could not complete anything. He got lost trying to make everything perfect. His multidisciplinary nature makes him unique, but also turns him into a restless spirit who cannot stay fixed on a single task for long. The Last Supper, Mathematics, Light and Codes. One of Leonardo's most important completed works from the Milan period is The Last Supper. He paints it on the wall of the refectory at Santa Maria delle Grazie, so that the painted space feels like an extension of the dining hall itself. He chooses the exact moment when Christ says, "One of you will betray me." Some key aspects of this work: on the huge surface, about 4.5 by 9 metres, he constructs the perspective so precisely that no matter where you measure from, Christ's forehead falls at the exact geometric centre of the composition. This is an extraordinary achievement in mathematics and geometry. The natural light entering the refectory hits the painting from the same direction. When the hall is bright in daylight, the painting also appears daylit. When it's darker, the painting darkens with it. Leonardo calculates the composition according to the real lighting conditions in the space. Christ's pose forms a triangle, a symbolic reference to the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thomas is shown turning toward Christ with a raised finger. This is read as a reference to the later scene of doubting Thomas placing his finger into the resurrected Christ's wound. The figure with the money purse at the table is Judas. The spilled salt in front of him is a traditional Western symbol of betrayal. The figure behind Judas holding a knife is Peter, often misinterpreted as the betrayer. In fact, he is the one who draws a blade to defend Jesus during the arrest. On the technical side, however, Leonardo's use of dry plaster and paint, rather than true fresco technique, causes the work to deteriorate quickly. As the wall's structure shifts, the painting flakes. It has had to be restored many times. Despite this fragility, in terms of composition and spatial logic, it is considered a masterpiece. Mona Lisa. The anatomy of a smile and the question of identity. Mona Lisa is one of the most discussed portraits in art history. What makes it special is not just the smile. In that era, the background of portraits is usually plain. In Mona Lisa, however, there is a detailed landscape: roads, mountains, water. It is one of the earliest examples that blends portrait and landscape. After numerous restorations, her eyebrows and eyelashes have faded, leading generations to mock her as, "Is this the famous Mona Lisa?" But the original likely had more distinct facial details. Leonardo's anatomical studies on cadavers, especially of lips, mouths and facial muscles, suggest that the smile is less a mystery and more a product of rigorous anatomical research. According to his contemporaries, in conversation he would deliberately make people laugh or grow angry to observe the movement of their mouth corners, cheek muscles, and the area around the eyes. Mona Lisa's smile, which seems to follow the viewer like an optical illusion, is rooted in this intense observational practice. With his Sfumato technique, he creates soft, smoky transitions without hard outlines. In modern terms, he is almost like the first to apply a filter on a face using paint. There are several theories about the sitter. Lisa Gherardini, wife of a Florentine merchant. This is the most commonly accepted theory. The name Mona Lisa is said to derive from this, a courtesan working in elite circles, but the noble emblems and fine detailing in her dress make it unlikely that a sex worker would be portrayed in this way. Isabella d'Aragona, daughter of King Ferdinand of Portugal. Some portraits of Isabella have a strong resemblance to the Mona Lisa, but she dies a few years before the painting is believed to have been started, so the chronology is problematic. Leonardo's assistant Salai Meni note the facial similarities between the effeminate apostle in the Last Supper, certain St. John paintings, and the Mona Lisa. Salai's feminine features may have been a model. Leonardo gave him the nickname Salai, Little Devil, instead of using his real name. In his notebooks, Leonardo uses strong language about Salai, calling him things like thief and little devil, noting that silver goes missing from the workshop and blaming him, yet Salai stays with him for about 30 years. After Leonardo's death, his will leaves significant portions of his estate to both the disciplined, reliable assistant Melzi and to this troublesome little devil Salai. Personality: vegetarian, animal lover, social genius. Several traits are attributed to Leonardo. He is vegetarian and fond of animals. There are anecdotes of him buying caged birds just to set them free. He has a particular fascination with curly hair. He often paints both dogs and humans with soft curls. He dresses well, uses perfumes, and moves comfortably in the company of princes and kings. Friends say spending time with him is delightful. In conversations, he would deliberately provoke laughter or anger to study people's facial expressions, almost turning social interaction into an experiment. Claims about his IQ being over 200 belong more to the realm of myth, but testimonies from his contemporaries paint a clear picture of an extraordinarily fast and curious mind. Sleep, mirror writing, and left-handedness. It is said that Leonardo experimented with polyphasic sleep, sleeping 15 minutes every 4 hours, trying to stay active for up to 22 hours a day. Whether this is strictly accurate or not, it shows his obsession with maximizing time. His famous mirror writing, writing from right to left, is often romanticized as a secret code. In reality, the reason appears much more practical. Leonardo is left-handed and uses wet ink. When he writes in the normal direction, the fleshy side of his hand smears the still wet line of text. by reversing the direction of writing and moving his hand away from the fresh ink, he keeps his script clean. So the mirror writing is less an esoteric cipher and more a clever ergonomic solution by a left-handed genius. A bridge to the Ottomans, the unbuilt Galata design. During the reign of Bayezid II, Leonardo writes a letter to the Ottoman court. In the Topkapi Palace archives, this is recorded as the letter of the infidel called Leonardo the Venetian. Infidel, here, being a term for a non-Muslim with a different understanding of God. In the letter, Leonardo politely states that he has heard they wish to build a bridge over the Golden Horn, Galata, but have not found a suitable expert. He explains that he has the knowledge to design and construct such a bridge and offers his services. Many believe that had it been the time of Mehmed II, Fatih, the project might well have been approved, but Bayezid, known as Sofu, pious, inward-looking, is more conservative, and the bridge is never built. Roughly 500 years later, a Norwegian architect takes Leonardo's bridge design and builds it in Norway, naming it after Leonardo. Thus, a bridge imagined for Istanbul instead comes to life in a northern country. Inventions, machine oil, and a musical instrument. Leonardo doesn't just draw machines, he also thinks deeply about how they move and wear down. In his designs for gear systems, he realizes that friction slows movement and reduces efficiency. He experiments with animal fats to reduce friction, an early conceptual step toward modern machine oils. He learns to play the lyre quickly in Verrocchio's workshop, then goes on to invent his own musical instrument. In modern times, a musician from Eastern Europe builds a functioning version based on Leonardo's drawings, performs concerts with it, and even brings the instrument to Turkey. Secret societies, popular culture, and modern echoes. Later centuries associate Leonardo with groups like the Priory of Sion, popularized by Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. Whatever the historical accuracy of such claims, it is clear that his notes about perception and the unreliability of the senses resonate with metaphysical themes in the Matrix. The Vitruvian Man becomes a visual touchstone for the robot aesthetics in Westworld. His flying machines and inventions inspire the inventor Leonardo character in Assassin's Creed Turned. And of course, the smart leader-type turtle in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles bears his name. The Vitruvian Man drawing gives visual form to the proportional theories of the ancient Roman architect Vitruvius about the human body and the golden ratio. Leonardo uses the human body as a microcosm to understand the macrocosm, a perfect visual embodiment of Renaissance Platonism. Salvator Mundi, the most expensive painting and a shared authorship. Today, the most expensive painting ever sold is Salvator Mundi, associated with Leonardo. Its journey goes roughly like this. Around the 1500s, it is in the collection of the English king. In the 1700s, it passes to the Duke of Buckingham. In the 1900s, it is downgraded and considered a work by Leonardo's pupils. It is sold cheaply by a family who are told it's a studio copy. Later, institutions like the Louvre study the painting and argue that significant parts are by Leonardo himself. A Swiss collector buys it for around $80 million and sells it shortly thereafter to a Russian oligarch for a much higher price. A few years ago, it is purchased by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for about $450 million. Many experts believe the face, hair and hand are by Leonardo, while the crystal orb and some optical details were completed by an assistant, likely Salai or Melzi. The fact that the cloth behind the orb does not refract or distort realistically suggests an optical mistake. Someone as meticulous as Leonardo would not make such a basic error, which supports the idea that this section was painted by someone else in his workshop. Anatomy and the microcosm. From heart to womb. Leonardo's anatomical drawings are groundbreaking not only for artists, but also for the history of medicine. Through his dissections he draws the chambers of the heart and the separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, depicts the function of the aorta, studies the spine as the central support structure, illustrates the structure and role of the female uterus and male reproductive organs. In line with Renaissance Platonism's micro to macro approach, he tries to reach the divine or universal rational order by examining the microcosm, the human body. Conclusion: perhaps not the greatest painter, but one of the greatest minds. Was Leonardo da Vinci the single greatest painter of his age? Perhaps not. When compared to contemporaries like Michelangelo and Raphael, you can point to some pictorial shortcomings, unfinished commissions, and a somewhat scattered working style. But it is hard to find another figure who blends painting, engineering, anatomy, geology, mechanics, stage design, and philosophy in one person to this degree. He was not a lonely, forgotten genius hunched over his notebooks in a dark room, but a man who walked beside kings and princes, dressed well, made people laugh and frown just to study their faces, freed caged birds but smuggled dissected body parts in baskets, designed war machines and bridges, helicopters and musical instruments at the same table. In short, Leonardo da Vinci was the flesh and blood embodiment of the Renaissance dream of uniting the best of everything in a single human being. Telling his story cannot be completed in a few episodes or a few pages, yet in every line of that story there is a curious eye, a hand that never stops drawing, and a mind that refuses to fit into any ready-made category.